Hi, thanks for joining. I just wanted to do part two, really, of those things in your control. I hope you found the first one informative. I was really there talking about boundaries, thoughts, actions, um, and they're really habit driven. The next ones are really probably around the things that you do a little bit more of, and that's sort of like the goals that you set for yourself, the energy that you put to those goals or anything that you do in your life, how you speak to yourself, that's all in your control. And then how you handle your life in general and challenges that come up. These are all things that you have control over. You're not sort of beholden to a certain way of working. But again, as it is with the sort of the other things around your boundaries and those sort of things, this is also habit driven. How you handled, how you spoke to yourself, how you tackled things is all stuff that you learned as a child, as you're growing up, as you had success, things that worked. That's how you did things. All right, well, this worked last time, so I'm going to do it again like this next time. And all those things are then driven by your success. And a lot of times when we humans, if we know something works, we will continue to do it. But sometimes as we grow, both in experience, as in and leadership, in people, we have to change some of these things as well as ourselves and in terms of what we stand for as well. And so if we look at each one of those, like our goals, we can choose our own goals. We don't need to sort of be beholden to somebody else's goals. And we don't need to be beholden to living through somebody else. I know there's a lot of people that sometimes don't get things that they sort of wanted as a child, and then sometimes live their goals of their dreams through their own children by pushing them. And then they're really sometimes they're disappointed if they don't have their child doesn't sort of take those goals on because it really means something to them. But I think at any age you can have goals. Those people that sort of retire and then sort of live their lives in a very sedate sort of way, there's still so much that you have to offer and so much that you have to do that you don't. Retiring is just maybe from work, but there's so many other goals that you can still have at that point in time in terms of passing your knowledge on, even learning new skills. At that point in time in your life, you can have so many new experiences that your life will just be filled with ever. The other thing is around the energy you give to something. Sometimes again, this is built on habits and you do enough to get by. I know I'm very much like that, and it's something that I have to sort of change about myself. Is that as growing up and at school and so on and so forth, it was very easy for me to get through exams, very easy for me to study, and so I did enough to get by, and I got by fairly well even when I. And so sometimes I've never pushed myself, and sometimes that fear in there is that, like, if you push and then you don't do well, well, why did I push myself if that was going to be then a disastrous occurrence? So sometimes those things can actually think, but you can provide that energy. It doesn't mean that anything's going to happen, but you can sort of put as much effort as you want to put in there as well. I think the biggest one that you have control over, though, is what your self-talk is. And this, I think, is one that we as human beings, somehow we were wired wrong. I think when we were created, born, whatever you want to sort of say, our self-talk is a lot of times is very negative. We're the worst critics of ourselves. And we are always constantly putting ourselves down or putting ourselves in a box or putting ourselves out of contention. Recently I've been looking at, I've had a situation where I've had to reapply for jobs and get new jobs. And it's amazing how quickly you talk yourself out of a new job that I couldn't do that. I'm not good enough for that. Somebody else would do that better. And if somebody else looked at that, they'd say, you're perfect for that role. Why haven't you gone for it? So we are our own self-critics, and sometimes we have to pull ourselves up and understand what's going on there and make sure that we're not doing ourselves out of something before we've even start. And this is a topic that I could talk about forever, and I'll probably do a separate video just on our self-talk. But there's so much there that we need to unpack. The last one is really just how you handle things. I've always been praised that the one thing that I do have is calmness when there's a lot of issues, up to a point, and then I suddenly go over I go all mental basically, and stuff like that. But that's also something that we have control of. How do we deal with pressure situations? How we deal with challenges? So all of those things that I've talked about, like from the first video around boundaries, thoughts, and actions, to now about your goals, the energy you apply, how you speak to yourself, your self-talk, and then also how you handle challenges, are all things that you should really sort of make sure that you have in your control, and you're actually handling them the way you want to handle them. Hopefully this has been good. I'm going to talk a little bit more in another video around self-talk, because I think it's such a huge topic, and I think it's I'm one especially around bad self-talk. So I'll catch you in that video, and hopefully that will be informative. Hope this one was informative. Thanks for spending the time, and I hope to talk to you real soon.